Up. Hold on. Testing. Okay, there we go. Cool. My audio is not hooked up to the right source. Kind of a important detail. Although the MacBook Pro microphones these days are so good that like you could almost do the stream on there, but of course it's not going to sound as good as a real podcast mic. But hello everybody. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining on a Thursday night, a little bit of an unusual time compared to normal. Hello, buddy from Waco. Nice to see you here. So, long story short, our dryer has been teetering on collapse for a while. And we've been kind of putting off, do we get a new dryer? Do we repair it? Looking different options. And finally just decided a dryer is so important to a family of 5 with 3 kids and cranking through lots of laundry. I mean, we basically do laundry every single day for something or other. And having a dryer that's extremely slow and unreliable was getting to be a real pain. So finally just decided I looked in the potential of like repairing it, but I just decided to bite the bullet and get a new one. So that's being delivered tomorrow. And it could likely be delivered during when I would usually have the live stream. So I don't want to count on doing a live stream in the middle of someone installing an appliance like just across on the other side of the basement, which would be a lot of noise, be a lot of distraction. I'd probably need to be involved with some of it. From the smart home side of things, I did look at some of the smart dryer options like GE Profile, I think, has one that integrates with like Google Home and Amazon and some stuff. But I just ended up going with just a well-rated dryer that's not smart at all. So I got a good deal on an Electrolux, which is supposed to be pretty good. So we'll see. But that's why I can't do a live stream tomorrow during our usual time. But the other thing too, regardless of whatever smart or not smart appliances you have if you have a laundry room with a washer and dryer, I know not everybody does. It's kind of a luxury in a certain sense, just in and of itself. But I put a camera in there not that long ago, and it is nice to be able to check in on the displays of both the washer and the dryer and just see what's going on, particularly as it's been taking a long time to dry clothes as our dryer's been wearing out. And that can be something that's not too hard to set up usually and can actually be pretty handy depending on, you got to get the camera angle right so that you can have at least some way to kind of understand what the display shows on the dryer or what the knob position is. And there are any number, some of you guys have probably tried, there's any number of different ways you can put a sensor on a dryer or a washer, right, to detect things like a vibration sensor from Aqara. But you know, those can have some false positives and can be tricky to nail it down. So just having a camera where you can see the washer and dryer from anywhere can be kind of nice. So maybe if you have a spare home kit camera as you're upgrading other stuff, consider putting one in your laundry room. So hello, everybody. Nichols Media Group. Hi from Palm Beach. Brian, nice to see you here. Got some good regulars. Hello from Phoenix. Oh, it must be very hot in Phoenix these days. It is hot here, but obviously not Phoenix hot. Although I have a sweatshirt on because I'm here in the basement, and when your air conditioning is running on and off throughout the day, then it's like a bunch of the cold air just gradually settles in the basement. And when you're used to like warm temperatures outside and have like light clothes on, and then come in the basement, it's just like, it's really cold. So yeah, that's why down here in the basement in the summer, sometimes to make it not feel weird for a summer YouTube video, I'll take it off for recording, but like just hanging out here for a live stream or something, I'm gonna have a sweatshirt on. So it's because it's chilly down here, even though it's hot outside. John, nice to see you from hot Texas, another hot state, I'm sure right now. Hey, Modern Day Tech Eric. Nice to see you here. Another great smart home creator. Oh, 110. Wow, that's hot. Yeah, I bet it'll get even hotter. Probably for you this year. I don't know. My grandfather used to live in Arizona, and it could get pretty hot in the summers there. He was down in Tucson, though. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of news, a lot of WWDC follow-up, all kinds of different things coming out with WWDC, and just new products, new locks especially, but new lock news to talk about. So hope you're locked in and ready to go for this live stream. Starting off with, I think, one of the big things that kind of came out this week, although it was about WWDC and it took place the week of WWDC, was Federico Viticci over at Mac Stories had a great interview with Craig Federighi, who's, of course, the head of software at Apple. And, we could talk more about that from like the iPad sense, but I think the real thing to think about from, and I think there's an interesting angle there. Oh, sorry, now I got my video source is not coming through. There we go. Now I got the little camera here. But that's an interesting side of it too, right? Talking about what Federighi thinks about certain aspects of iPadOS and iPad. But I think the real interesting point for us smart home Apple fans is there's a whole subgenre on YouTube or niche on YouTube of people talking about doing work or other things on iPad, right? Using iPad to do stuff for school or for work. And Christopher Lawley's kind of one creator that comes to mind. There's a lot of others, K-Digital Studio, Noah Herman. There's like a long list of Apple-related creators who talk a lot about the iPad. And I love the iPad, and I do a lot on iPad, and I'll probably be talking more about it as I'm more excited about it now. But a lot of those creators really left the iPad for a while because they were kind of miffed and I don't know if miffed's the right word, but they felt like the iPad had landed in the place that wasn't for them, right? That Apple had stopped updating it in ways that were catering to power users, and then they just decided, well, I'm going to go off and explore other things. I'm going to use the Mac, or maybe use a PC or something, just explore other platforms and other computers and not necessarily using the iPad. And I think we're kind of in a similar spot with Apple Home right now. Apple Home isn't quite as big of a space, at least right now, as iPad is. However, we're kind of waiting for this like next big thing from Apple that's rumored to be this new smart home display, and a lot of updates related to that. That's now the latest rumors are swirling around for the spring of 26. So hopefully by this time next year it'll be out. But that's just kind of where at least where all the predictions are landing right now. And I want to talk more about some signs of stuff that came out at WWDC for that, but I just wanted to point that out in the context of iPad, right? Because doing these things well and doing them at the level that Apple needs to do them at, for the scale Apple is at, it takes time. And it took them a long time to ship a lot of these iPad features that were in the works for years. And of course, Apple was hearing all the criticism. And I think, obviously there's, in general, I think some very fair criticism from people like Federico Viticci about the iPad. But I think, and I think there's been maybe some criticism or just sadness that there's not more Apple Home stuff. And I think, at least best we can tell from the outside, it's coming, but that kind of stuff takes time. And I think we shouldn't, give up hope is kind of a way to put it. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff coming from Apple in the smart home that we haven't even seen yet, and so I just wanted to preface all this sort of new news with the iPad and kind of lack of Apple Home updates at WWDC with, it seems like Apple's got a lot of smart home stuff coming. So keep that in mind. And I want to get to something else that looks kind of like hinting towards a smart home display from Apple. First, I want to say hi to some more folks in the chat. Oh, yeah, it's dry heat, which is, yes, back to break time in Texas. Oh, yes. That's another great point, John, for a dryer or washer is if it runs on a standard outlet, you can use an energy monitoring plug to know when they stop, right? Because then the energy usage will drop and then you can get a notification about that or something else. So that can be another great way to automate a washer or dryer, provided you have a plug that can support the power and the plug matches a standard outlet, which in my case it actually does. So maybe I'll do one of those automations once I get this new dryer in. Oh yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Modern Day Tech, who you might remember if you're a regular viewer of this live stream, has joined us live as a guest before. He's based in Maryland and has, as he's saying, like getting in the attic. So like, yeah, you get hot in the summer. I've thought about like there's definitely advantages and disadvantages to the basement studio and the attic studio. Sometimes I'm envious of the people who have maybe some more windows and just getting above ground for doing their stuff. But yeah, trade-offs for sure. All right. I think you're talking about Amir Anor. You're talking about the I think the iPad. Oh no, complicated to have a smart home. Yes, it should be not that complicated to have a smart home. Instead of third-party ones, it was so complicated the first time I entered a smart home kit. Yeah, it's it's a good point, Amir. I think it's kind of a labor of love at this point. Even with Apple Home, Apple makes it a lot easier than let's say other smart home platforms sometimes to do smart home tech. But I think it's really like you kind of have to be an enthusiast at this point to really have some passion there to put in the time to get smart home tech working for you. I still think there's a benefit, and certainly a convenience benefit, and a benefit you can give to other people you live with when things are more energy efficient. Things turn on when they're supposed to and turn off when they're supposed to. You can check on the status of things when you're away, have some peace of mind with that. Know when a leak happens in your home early, and hopefully save a bunch of money that way. I think there's definitely benefits to smart home tech, but I agree it's for someone who's really just in it for a few of the benefits and isn't in it for the journey. It can be a lot to set up right now. So I get where you're coming from, and I think Apple can make that better. I think Matter has gone a long way to make that a lot better, and will continue to do so. It doesn't mean Matter's perfect. I mean, I know Matter's had its bugs over the years, but I think it's getting better. So, one thing, speaking of Apple, so if you're familiar with what WWDC is, of course, they have a lot of sessions there's the main sessions on Monday of that week. There's the main one for the public, and then there's sort of a keynote in the afternoon for developers around things like updates to Xcode and kind of overview of certain APIs and things like that. But then there's a bunch of sessions which used to be kind of during the week, and Apple just dumped basically a bunch of them at once this year with, and they've transitioned over the years to just being videos in the developer app. And one of the videos this year on the sessions was around designing these snippets for app intents. So I'm going to try and pull this up here. It just keeps wanting to open the developer app for me, which is great usually, but like I like to show you this in Safari. And so let me pull this up here. Come on. There we go. So they had this video called Designing Interactive Snippets. Now, I'm just going to play some of this video on mute for you guys so that just to kind of show some visuals for what I'm trying to say, which is that these are basically like visual confirmations for app intents. So app intents, not intense like intensive, but like intent, app intents. It's hard to say, but they're kind of the backbone now of Apple's automation across a bunch of different things, including shortcuts, including various things you can trigger from talking to SIRI, various things you can trigger in other ways. Like when you search for an app, you might see some actions next to the icon for certain apps that have exposed intents to the system. And there's some other ways. And Matthew Cassinelli is a great creator talking all about shortcuts and app intents. And at the developer conference, I mentioned a while back, a live stream that is here in Chicago, Deep Dish Swift. Matthew gave a great talk this year talking about app intents and all the ways you can and should add them for various actions in your app. But of course, one of the key things that Apple talked about last year was this personalized context of Siri, right? That Siri would be able to understand more about your life and your phone and your emails and your messages, your calendar appointments, etc., and pull a lot of things together. And one of the things that it seems like that new evolved version of their Apple's voice assistant can do is understand when you're asking for something that's actually something that can be solved in a particular app you have, and then summon that app with an intent in the background and take care of whatever task it is for you, almost being like an AI agent, if you think of it that way. And so with this, Apple's had similar things along these lines in the past, but Apple's adding a way in iOS for the phone to expose different intents with UI. So maybe you ask or you perform an action that has some sort of confirmation needed. That's one of the examples they gave for it. Or then you need to make a decision about something. Then you can see this little bit of UI there on the screen and then tap a button to perform an action. And they show examples where you can actually like change. Appearance and the appearance is something else. They're talking about how you can lay it out in Swift UI and some of the different tools there. But like you can change some of the data in the intent by hitting these buttons and then seeing the UI update. And you can see how there's Apple saying nothing about a smart display and talking about this, but a lot of the rumors from Mark Gurman have been around that this new smart display from Apple will be heavily based on the new Siri technologies, which is powered by app intents. And so you could see something where you ask this smart display assistant to turn on the living room lights, right? And then you see an app intent show up on the display with a slider to adjust the brightness of those lights. And I think it really could be interesting for this kind of a smart display because, of course, Apple's going to have things for Apple Home, right? And that's going to work out of the box. But it could also be something where other smart home platforms might benefit from this smart display too, right? You could potentially ask for something that's related to Philips Hue, and the Philips Hue app could show an intent UI that maybe triggers some custom Philips Hue scenes if you play with those in the past. You can see how maybe some, enterprising open source developers could make some things for this with the Home Assistant app, right? You ask for something and then it talks to the Home Assistant app via an intent, and then you see whatever accessory you've exposed exposed there as an intent with a little, brightness adjustment tool or whatever. So I think this whole idea of these little snippets, as Apple's calling them, and showing them, it's kind of also building along some other like building blocks that Apple's been building along these lines, probably are related to smart display, like I've talked about in the past, running widgets on your Mac from your iPhone. So you could somehow share a widget that just shows data with something like a smart display. And things like live activities where you are placing an order for something with store pickup, or you're doing something else, and like ordering an Uber or whatever, then you start to see that UI come up on the screen on the top of your phone, but you could see it show up in more places. Now with Mac OS Tahoe, that's showing up in the menu bar. So kind of the same idea. And so you can start to see, without knowing specifically that all of it's related to the smart display, at least just yet, you can start to see little bits and pieces of Apple's software working in the direction of a potential smart display in the future, and kind of get an idea of just how cool this kind of a device tied into a lot of your, not just Apple apps, but other apps you use on Apple's platforms could be really handy. And I think there could be a real market for this display, even for people back to Amir's point about Apple Home being tough to get into. You can see how a lot of people might not even really be into Apple Home that much, but just see the benefit of having that sort of ambient contextual thing that shows this UI related to their apps. You don't have to pull out your phone. You can just talk to this assistant. It'll show you the UI for confirming, whatever you're trying to do. You hit continue and it does its thing. And that could be really nice. So enough of a rant there. I'm sure you guys have some smart things to say about that, and some other ideas maybe to throw out there in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. But that was just my thoughts kind of coming out of that WWDC talk. Hey, Jeff. Nice to see you from Georgia. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, glad you made it to a live stream. See the World with Chris. Cool. I'm guessing that's a YouTube channel name. Nice. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so got a lot of other news to cover. One thing was Eufy has a new, speaking of smart displays, let me pull this up. The Verge has a look into Eufy's new smart home display. So this will allow you to see Eufy cameras. If you are into Eufy cameras, of course, you can have your Eufy cameras shown in Apple Home, HomeKit Secure Video. I'm presuming this will work with Eufy, those Eufy cameras as well simultaneously. But this is the S380 data hub. Or no, sorry. That's the video hub you probably already have in your home if you're into Eufy cameras. I have one upstairs. It's a little like kind of base station that connects to your cameras. And then this smart display would show stuff from it. So it's a 8-inch display for $200, which I think is a pretty competitive price for something like this. And we'll see how the actual, what the quality of the screen is like on this, and seeing events. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to get one for the channel and check it out, or try and get one through my contacts at Eufy, but we'll see. It's going to be available starting on June 30th, so at the end of the month, which, speaking of coming up, beginning of next month, you've probably already seen if you open the Amazon app recently, they have all the promotions starting for Prime Day in July. This Prime Day is going to be very big. I think there's I'm already hearing a lot of exciting news and things coming for Prime Day, and definitely be talking about it here on the channel. So stay tuned for Prime Day coverage here on my channel, but also just in general. Something to keep in mind as you're deciding purchases or what you want to do different times. Prime Day, I think, might be worth waiting for this year. So we'll see. Hey, Edgar's Home Tech. Thanks for tuning in. Great to see you. Yeah, another great smart home creator. All right. I'm always jealous, Edgar, of your kitchen. Looks beautiful compared to my kitchen is not very nice. So I always think you have a beautiful home, but just like kitchen. Anyways, let's see. And Philips Hue has some ambient wall lights. This is another Verge post from earlier this week. I mean, it kind of follows in their sync system, I think. So if you already have Hue Sync, or if you're looking at that, I recently talked about the Govee Sync box on my channel, but this is the new Philips Hue Play Wall light. And yeah, just another option to put some color up on the wall. I think the cool part about this compared to maybe something like Nanoleaf has a lot of these wall installations that look really neat, like the lines and the shapes. And I like those a lot. But I guess a trade-off or an advantage of this kind of form factor is that then you don't have to hang anything on your wall, and you still get a lot of that color decoration. But of course, it's easy to take down and also to install. So, yeah, new product coming. I don't know if I'm really going to check this out on my channel, but I think it's good to note for those of you who are Philips Hue fans out there. And another product is also from The Verge. The Kwikset has a new home key smart lock, right? This is their Matter over. Okay, yeah, this one does not have home key. This is just their Matter over Thread version, which is still like, I met with Kwikset at CES. They have a great team. They've actually, I think, now been purchased by Assa Abloy, who's like a bigger lock conglomerate. But Kwikset has some cool ways that you can customize the key to match your existing keys. And they're also just a giant lock brand that you can find pretty much any store, and a lot of people are familiar with them. So a Matter over Thread lock from them, I think, is just a good one to keep an eye out for and keep in mind when you're looking for a smart lock, just because of its flexibility, because of the Kwikset brand. I think, I basically decided I'm not probably going to review this or the other Kwikset home key lock anytime soon, just because there's so many locks to take a look at. But doesn't mean I don't think this is a bad lock or something you shouldn't consider. So yeah, just wanted to mention that's now, The Verge highlighted it's out and available, and could be one to take a look at. So, let's see. We talked about Energy Kit last week. So let's see. What's up, Ratchet Gang? Nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. Another regular viewer. Modern Day Techs here. Yes. And 200. I don't know what that's about, but... Oh, sorry. Anyways. Let's see. So we talked about the interview with Craig. I've been really enjoying iPadOS, playing with that. I haven't played with the new tvOS beta much yet. I think it's great that it has a new liquid glass look, but I have it on my list to check out some of that persistent speaker connection stuff there, but I haven't gotten there yet. I've been doing a bunch of just a lot of like long-term work for future projects in my smart home, upgrading things, working on new videos coming your way. And I'm also like, I'm starting to post. I've never really been into TikTok myself, but I'm starting to post over there as well. So if you're into TikTok, you can go look me up and follow me. It's just my name, Eric Wielander. I'm over there now. I mean, I parked my profile like a long time ago there, but haven't really posted much. So yeah, but I think it seems like it'll be sticking around, and also gonna post over there. So we'll see. Yeah, so many locks. I agree, Modern Day Tech. You know, it's funny. I'm sure, Eric, you see this Modern Day Tech working in this business of YouTube as well. But you get pitched on all these different locks to check out, and there's so many locks these days that are coming out with NFC and home key. It's like everybody saw a couple years ago the Slage and Code Plus be a smash hit and sell out like that, and then no one could buy a Slage and Code Plus anywhere. And then everybody thought, oh, we need to make one of those, right? And then they did, and here they are. But of course now there's just on the horizon, there's a new Aliro standard with Apple Home Key, which will enable things like better sharing of keys, and then ultra wideband and some other stuff. So, and there's some ultra wideband locks, on the horizon, like UTech Ultra Lock announced at CES. So, so we'll see. But it's just, you're right. I think the only advantage of a lot of these locks have is that they're just a different brand and different aesthetics, right? Some locks might fit your home better than others, and so I think that's still what makes them interesting. But in general, yeah, it's like there's so many NFC home key locks these days that work with Matter and work with home key, and I just don't really care too much about them. But one that doesn't work with home key, but is one that I think is worth knowing about. And I saw Shane talked about this on his live stream yesterday, is the Aqara U200 Lite. So this is basically, if you're familiar with the U200 from Aqara, it's, that retrofit lock goes on top of your deadbolt, and then the U200, the full version, comes with a keypad with a fingerprint reader, and the keypad is also what enables Apple Home Key. And the U200 Lite just does the deadbolt. So, it's a pretty competitive price, and also, the U200 is great, and then it's compatible with a lot of different types of locks, including locks in different parts of the world. So it could be a really good one to consider, even if you're just looking for a smart lock. Of course, it talks to Apple Home, so you can still use all the normal Apple Home benefits of locking your door at night with your goodnight scene. There are plenty of nights where I forget that we've left the door unlocked, right? And the goodnight scene catches it and locks the door, which is very handy and nice peace of mind. So stuff like that, you have a smart lock, you can take care of that for you. Or maybe, maybe it's not the main entrance to your home. Maybe you have another door in your house where you want to put a lock on a deadbolt. Could be nice to put something like this on there. You don't really need Apple Home Key in that case, and save a little bit of money. This is, let's see, it's pounds. I don't know if this is available yet in the US. I haven't seen anything on it. To be honest, the reason it's coming up here, I haven't been like super keen on this lock myself, but it does have this cool NFC sticker, by the way. Which where's a better photo of it? Basically, you can use this as a way to do NFC with the iPhone and the Aqara app, and also Aqara's little NFC cards. Do they have a better picture of it here on the website? I can't find it. But it's basically this little gray box. But that's something else to consider, by the way, with Aqara. If you have any of the Aqara locks that support NFC, they make these little, it's like $10 a piece on Amazon, these little like black key cards. And you can tap those, you can pair those key cards with a particular lock, and then you just tap that key card on the lock and it unlocks the door. And that can be a nice way to, if you need to give someone a key to your home, they're watching your house while you're away or something like that. They're maybe some ways you could do that with a PIN code or something like Apple Home, but just physically giving them this little thing and be like, hey, tap this on the door and it'll let you in. It can be a nice way to have that physical thing. And of course, you can give them a key. A lot of Aqara locks and a lot of other, smart locks, they still have that analog standard key slot. Of course, Quickset, we talked about earlier, has the nice ability to make that work with your existing keys very easily. But it's a nice feature with Aqara to keep in mind. If you're thinking of heading out for the summer, have someone watching your home, maybe go over to Amazon and check out one of those little NFC key cards from Aqara, because they can be a nice tool for letting other people in your home while you're not there. I mean, of course, you can always remotely unlock it, but it's the last thing you probably want to worry about while you're on vacation or whatever. So, that was the other piece of news. Ultra wideband lock should be coming soon, although some little birdies have told me that it is harder than I think initially anticipated to get that stuff to work reliably with the Aliro standard. Thanks, Edgar. Yeah. Nintendo Switch 2 has been a lot of fun. And I'm going to be talking more about like some of the TV setup related to smart home tech and how that all combines together in a future video. But I've been really pleased with that Hisense U8, the 2025 model that they sent me. It's an amazing picture. Now, I'm not a TV reviewer and channel. I've heard good things from people who are. But I think from the smart home side, it's a really nice TV and also gaming. It gives you a lot of the new HDMI high frame rate stuff with 4K. And very happy with that TV and works well with the Switch 2. Although, of course, the Switch 2 is not a cutting edge game console with higher than 60 hertz gaming, but whatever. Ratchet Gang, we talked a little bit about this before you joined the stream. And thank you. I'm glad you found my video interesting on that topic. But I think, Apple has a lot of stuff coming in, like we saw with iPads this year. Of course, Apple delivered a lot of features in iPad OS 26 that are coming. A lot of things people have been wanting for years. And, I think it's good to give constructive criticism to Apple and, compliment them on things that do well and wish for things to be better in certain areas. I think Apple's still working really hard on smart home tech, and they, I think, have a lot of cool stuff coming. We just can't see it yet because it's not ready, and that stuff takes time. So our day will come, but it's not right now. Yeah, and this gets into another perennial topic. I'm not big into these, but of course, facial recognition is the new craze sweeping the smart lock game. So you can get locks now with cameras. I know Modern Day Tech Eric's reviewed a bunch of them. He loves the idea, and so does I think some other reviewers. I think Shane likes them too. So I'm just, it's not really like a thing I care about too much. I think a fingerprint reader is plenty good enough for me. But face recognition, definitely a thing coming to more locks. And another thing to consider if you're looking at smart locks, you might want it. My complaint, generally speaking, about face recognition is that you have to set it up, of course, in the manufacturer's app and things. That's all fine. But the challenge I feel like it makes the lock so much bigger. And one of the things I like as we're getting more just basic Matter plus home key NFC locks, and then maybe even ones with fingerprint readers, is just having a lock that doesn't look like a giant computer bolted to your door. That's just like, it's sleek, it's there, it's functional. Yes, you can probably tell it's a smart lock, but even in something like a level lock's case, you couldn't tell it's a smart lock. And I think that's what I would prefer, and feels to me more like the Apple aesthetic. But that said, so maybe someday someone can cram a little face recognition camera in a lock where you'd barely notice it, And that might get me more interested. And to be honest, I have not tried any of the face recognition locks myself because I haven't been interested in them. Maybe one of these days I'll actually try one and it'll be, I'll change my mind, right? But until then, I'm happy with just the basic home key stuff. Hey. Yes, I did move to Friday. Sorry, Saul. Thanks for coming back. As I described at the top of the stream, I'm getting a dryer installed tomorrow, and this time works better for me this week, so changed it on the calendar. And by the way, I'm actually going to be changing some stuff with my website soon, but if you go to, this will still be the case either way. If you go to my website, if you're curious about keeping up with live streams, I tend to try and post different places on social as well. But I have a calendar here, a Google Calendar, which you can subscribe to as an ICS feed or in Google Calendar, whichever. So if you don't use Google, if you're like into Apple, iCloud, or Microsoft, the ICS feed is probably easier. But this is always updated with when I'm doing a stream, right? So we had a stream last Friday, and it'll provide a link to the actual live stream. And of course, like next week, tentatively, I'll be doing a live stream at 3 p.m. Central Time. So that's there on the website. But there's ericw.org/live, and you can get there and see that calendar feed. There'll also be other ways, hopefully in the future, to just stay more in tune with things like what's going on my channel. But right now, that's a way you can, and that calendar will stay there, and that's not going anywhere. So feel free to go check it out. All right. Yeah, I think that would be really nice. See the World with Chris has a great point about just like the face detection on an iPhone is so solid, and an iPad as well. I love it. I mean, I think some of these current ones are at that level or close. One of the other things I haven't heard a lot of like reviewers test, but I haven't looked into all the details, but I'd be curious about some of the early iPhone face detection had trouble. And I've still seen every so often, occasionally you'll still see this, where like direct sunlight straight at the iPhone, there's a technical term they use when they talk about Face ID. I forget what it is, but the thing that basically like looks at your face with all those dots, that you can't see with the naked eye, like that kind of thing doesn't work well in direct sunlight when the sun is shining directly at the lens. And so I don't know, like if you had a door where you had this thing in direct sunlight, like, is it still going to recognize your face? It might just be using cameras. It might not be using any kind of, dots like your phone. I don't know. Have you played much with Steve's Mac Fix? Have you played much with Homebridge and Home Assistant? What features stand out to you with Home Assistant that would make you choose that? And how did you incorporate it into your own setup? So I'll be talking about this more on the channel soon. I think I've been talking about doing a Home Assistant video now for like a year. And it's always been the various iterations that I kick it around. There's a lot of like those topics, that you like kick around I kick around personally for months and play with and throw some ideas down in a note, and then they... sometimes they make it into a video and sometimes they don't. But for Home Assistant for me right now is not really a place where I put a lot of automation or a lot of details about my home, other than just I use Home Assistant like a lot of people and myself historically used Homebridge. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Homebridge. I just think the action in terms of like the attention, the developers, like, the support is all really flocking towards Home Assistant. And while it's not the most user-friendly platform and it can be tricky, like I have a Home Assistant green, I run that in my home and I use it to connect devices that either don't work at all or don't work well in Apple Home. So things like the the scripted integration to tying cameras. That can be really nice. And, there are ways with Homebridge and it's not the only way to get a lot of this stuff working, but scripted to do things like Unify cameras in Apple Home and things like the Govee integrations. Brian turned me on to this idea. I need to play with more the MQTT Govee integration, which seems to be the one to use. And Brian, who's in the chat here. But yeah, that's how I incorporate it. And you can get really advanced with Home Assistant and do all kinds of automations in there. You can set up dashboards and stuff. So I think the flexibility to have those options is really nice. And you don't really have that from my last time I looked at Homebridge. I didn't see that as much as I see it in Home Assistant. But that said, I think, as I think I mentioned this before, but I'm going to come back to it. It's like there's that meme on the internet of like around Notes apps, right? Like what Notes app do you use? Like Apple Notes, and you go on this journey of like complexity of like trying all these different Notes apps and then going back to Apple Notes and realizing actually Apple Notes has all the features you really need to keep track of your notes. And there's like a lot of power user features in Apple Notes. And I think there's a similar idea with Apple Home Automation. There's a lot under the covers with Apple Home Automation. Whether it's shortcuts you can create inside the Home app that are home specific shortcuts, or conditional automation, and doing that with third-party apps, things like Controller for HomeKit. There's a lot of power in Apple Home that I just think people feel like, well, this doesn't have all the features, right? So I'm just going to skip this and go to something like Home Assistant or Homey Pro. But I think I've been very happy with a lot of the stuff you can set up in Apple Home, and I feel like where I could make a more complex automation somewhere else, I prefer to have the simpler automation that gets me like 80% of the way there and is way easier to troubleshoot. Doesn't mean that I won't ever use Home Assistant for anything automated in the future, but I just think it doesn't mean Home Assistant, but just anything where you start to add more and more layers of conditions and complexity, right? It makes it harder to troubleshoot and harder to understand why did something go wrong when things go wrong, because it's smart home tech. It's smart home tech. Stuff will go wrong. So yeah, we'll see. I don't get what you're saying, John, but anyways, sorry. Yeah, the level vision. That'd be nice, modern day tech. I'd love to see that. Buddy, that's why I called out Kwikset kind of getting into this. I think Kwikset has mentioned they're doing an NFC lock. I don't think Kwikset is publicly confirmed if that's going to support HomeKey or not. But Kwikset's one to keep an eye on because A, huge lock brand, so easy to like find, get support, etc. And B, they have that patented exclusive feature that makes it easy to adjust the lock to fit your current key, which you can take any smart lock, the core of it, right, with the keyhole to a locksmith or like a lot of hardware stores and stuff and get it like rekeyed. I've never done that myself, but I know that's possible. So it's a thing you can do with pretty much any lock. However, Kwikset, of course, part of their trademark of Kwikset, it's like they have the stuff to do that yourself right in your home. So oh, congratulations, Tech Nostalgic. Oh, man. So I'm actually going to be doing some videos coming up in July. Might be too late for you, although, with the new home, maybe you have 1,000,001 projects to do. So But I'm gonna be thinking a lot about this in July. So stay tuned to the channel for maybe some more in-depth thought through ideas around starting a new home, products to get, or kind of upgrading your existing setup, taking your whole setup, big upgrade at once. I would say you definitely want to get some Apple TVs, and the higher end Apple TV, like one of those to really be the core of your smart home, and that should be plugged in with Ethernet if at all possible. Doesn't need to be, it's not essential, but I think that's from the Apple home side, that's what you really want, is an Apple TV hooked up to wherever you watch television. From there, I would look at then, of course, Wi-Fi 7. I was really happy with the Eero Pro 7 earlier. That can be a nice option, of course, if you want to go, if you have fiber internet and you feel like, kind of jumping into more advanced networking. Ubiquiti Unify is a great system. I love it and would recommend that. The advantage there is it kind of expands and grows into home surveillance and all kinds of other stuff, but it's a little bit less. It's kind of like, Eero Pro 7 is like your iPhone camera, right? You point it anywhere and it's going to make a million judgments to give you the right picture, and it's going to look great, a ton. But if you want to get the absolute best you possibly can, of course, there's big fancy SLR cameras out there that you can tweak all the settings and nail the focus just right, and boom, you get like another level of picture, right? Because you have a bigger lens and bigger camera. So I think the same analogy kind of is true with Wi-Fi and Ubiquiti and networking. So networking and then Apple TV would be like my first two things. From there, I think, I've always talked about smart plugs are a good thing to go to. You might also consider kind of reversing the order of purchases, right? I mean, you need some Wi-Fi, of course, probably to get started with your home, with the internet, but that could even be, in a pinch from usually your internet service provider can usually give you something to do that, at least at first. Or you might already have something there. But you might kind of reverse that if you're doing some remodeling or some ripping out of walls or maybe hiring contractors, electrician. You might look at putting in smart switches like Lutron Caseta smart switches. They're not hard for you as a person to learn how to do it yourself in a lot of cases. So give that a shot. Approach it with caution at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty straightforward. But also it can be nice if you're hiring an electrician, let's say, for something else, why not tack on a little bit of extra work for them? They can do the wiring and install the smart light switches just like any other switch. And then you have the smart light switches in place, and then you can make them smart today or, a month from now, and you have a chance and can get the Lutron bridge and all that stuff. So that's something to consider. The other thing, of course, with a remodel is just running Ethernet through your walls. Cat 6A, Cat 7. I think Cat 6A is plenty, but some folks on the live stream in the past have chimed in saying they would go with Cat 7. I think Cat 7 is a little harder to find as far as cable, but get a spool of that, and either yourself or working with a contractor, while the drywall is not there, run some cable through the wall. And just kind of getting that foundational stuff. It's harder to do once you're fully moved in the home, the furniture's in place, right? That can be a little bit, not impossible by any means. I do it all the time because of what I do with this channel, but it can be a little bit more challenging to do when you're already moved in. So those are some things to consider for kind of potentially consider Ethernet or smart switches, but then jump to Apple TV, home networking. And then from there, I look at things like smart locks, I think would be another great place to start. The challenge right now with doorbells is, a smart doorbell is a natural thing, right? I mean, Ring is all over the US. If you're watching this stream, you live in America, you've probably seen 1,000,001 Ring doorbells in your neighborhood. I don't recommend getting those. I mean, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're just not going to work with a lot of the stuff you probably want to use if you watch this channel. So there's not really a good doorbell option right now. I'd say the Aqara G4 doorbell is probably the best one right now, but they have the new, I think it's G410 or something they announced at CES. Should be coming, I think they said later this year. And that's going to have like better picture quality, taller image, so you can see more of a person at the door and some other things. So I would say hold off on the doorbell until maybe that comes out, or maybe there'll be other models too competing with that. If you must have a doorbell today, you might look at, something tied in with Ecobee. I've liked the Ecobee doorbell. But that's another thing to consider too, is like, you can kind of go multiple different routes on this. You can go the home security route. Oh, I want to have cameras. That's my top priority. Or I want to have smart lighting, right? That's my top priority. I mean, it's smart switches installed, or smart bulbs, even just putting those in. The other option is to go like the energy route, right? Of like heating and cooling your home. So getting smart thermostats. And those you can, if you're in the US, you can, and I imagine other countries have similar stuff. You can usually get some good rebates from your power company for getting smart thermostats. And often they'll have, like when I lived in California, and it's the same here in Illinois, they'll have like a store online you can go to, but you can also like usually get those rebates at your local store, purchasing there. And like even my local Best Buy was like totally familiar with all the different things you could get with those rebates. And it can be a meaningful discount. But yeah, so that's something to consider, is like the smart thermostat route. I've been recently really into the Nest stuff. Like the latest Nest thermostat, it looks beautiful, but based on all the stuff Google's been doing, deprecating old hardware and old Nest thermostat stuff, I don't know if I go with Google Nest anymore. Ecobee's been solid for years. And I mean, when I put in my Nest, of course, I took down the latest generation Ecobee, which was running my home just fine. Of course, because of what I do, right? If it's not broken, fix it till it is, as the saying goes. But the thing with Ecobee is, they have like that doorbell too, and some other things you might consider, but that's not going to work with Apple's HomeKit Secure Video. So, but yeah, the thermostat route is really the route of smart home tech that can like save you a bunch of money. So because you can, if you're interested in like running your home a little bit hotter, a little bit cooler, depending on the time of year, that can add up. So that could be something to consider depending on how you heat and cool your home, or what kind of climate you live in, all those details. One last thing you might prioritize is if you have a home with a lot of plumbing issues you're fixing, or maybe you don't have the best floodplain location, right? You might get risk flooding in your basement or something like that. Hopefully that's not the case, but in that case, certainly look at leak detectors, things like the Aqara leak sensors, putting those around your home. That's good to do regardless, but it's just like as this bill's racking up and you're buying more stuff, maybe that's top of your list, maybe it's not, but it's definitely something to consider too. So, yeah, and from there, you can kind of work out as the years go on, what's more the priority different years. I'd also say, if you can, focus on specific rooms beyond these themes that kind of are pervasive across a lot of rooms, right? Like a thermostat's going to control a whole zone, if not potentially your entire home. But focus on different zones. So just like the like if you can get like your whole living room having smart lights, rather than putting like one smart light in your living room and one in your bedroom, just put them all in one room or two rooms that are adjacent to each other, and then work out from there. Because having that where you can just hit a button on the wall or something, talk to a voice assistant, and boom, the whole room changes its mood and the lighting and stuff. It's way cooler than like, oh, all the lamps in our house can turn on or off, right? Like, oh well. So yeah, I'm probably, all of that is like spinning around in my head from brainstorming that will probably come out in a more fully formed, better thought through video, not specifically around those topics, but something along those lines coming down the road on my channel. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that. But yeah. This is another good smart lock question from Lawrence. What smart locks are for inside doors would you recommend that's HomeKit compatible? So usually inside doors, you'd be looking at, I think, what's called a latch lock, which is basically, a lot of smart locks, they're for a deadbolt, or, some kind of bolt, which is usually put on exterior doors. So here in my office, I actually have, you can now, because I changed my camera angle a little bit so you can actually see it now. And I didn't change it because of that, but by chance, you can see my door better now with the new live stream setup. And that's the Thorbolt Mark I. And they actually came out with an exterior home key lock recently too. But that would be one I consider. I did a short on this earlier, or late last year. So it's a Apple Home thread. And I think they have a Matter over thread one, I think. But Apple Home's probably what you're concerned about. And that's been a pretty solid doorknob lock for me. Comes in a handful of different finishes. Another one to consider as well is a Aqara U200. So if we go back to Aqara's website, let's go to their locks. And I've reviewed that last year. The advantage there is you get Apple Home Key support, right? So you can tap your Apple Watch to unlock the door. And you also get, you get a keypad on the Thorbolt as well, but it's kind of like a little keypad on the doorknob. The other cool thing about the U300 is that the fingerprint reader is right where you grab the door, right? So as you put your thumb on that doorknob, it's gonna read your fingerprint, which can unlock the door. So that can be, all those things are things to consider with the U300 versus the Thorbolt, but I think either one of those are going to be good options. One other thing is just like the U300 is a lot bigger in size. So a lot of interior doors, depending on your home, might be hollow, depending on like how expensive your home is or how fancy your home is, right? My home isn't super fancy, and so it has a lot of hollow doors in the inside. And so a U300 would work, but it'd be kind of pushing the limits of like the weight that a hollowed out door like this office door could support. And so I like the Thorbolt just being kind of a little smaller for that case. But it comes with less features. So, and if there is a fingerprint reader on this one too at the top, kind of pretty natural place to put it. So, those are kind of the two options that I'd think of right there. There's a lot of other smart home folks in the chat. So, maybe if anybody else has ones to add, for latch locks. The other thing is the U300 as a kind of the design of the U300, philosophically speaking, is that they want it to be sort of always locked, right? Which is usually the advantage. And if you put a lock on a door, you probably want it to be locked. But I like the idea of like having a lock that is unlocked, let's say, all the time when we're home, right? And it's only when we leave home or when certain people leave home that the door locks. And the Thorbolt is more set up for that. It has like a persistent unlock ability. When I used a U300, and I haven't used it recently, so maybe they fixed this in a software update, but one of my big complaints of the U300 was that, it auto locks all the time. So it's very easy if you have a registered fingerprint or a home key or a PIN code, any number of different ways to unlock a U300, but it's intended to be that then you open the door and it locks again, right? You unlock it and then you open the door and boom, the second you shut it, it's locked again, which for an interior door might be what you want. It might not be what you want. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And stay tuned if maybe Aqara has fixed that in a software update or added a setting for that. I'm not aware of them doing that, but Yeah, the Smart Light U300, Aqara's Home Tech, good one. Yep, and Chris, another regular live stream viewer. Nice to see you here, Chris. Thorbolt Mark 1. Yeah, I think Thorbolt can be a good option internally. Oh, you're welcome, Tech Nostalgic. Yeah, and so you have the latest Apple TV and a Eero 6E router. Wi-Fi 7 might be nice, but I think if you already have 6E, you're probably going to be more than sufficient for now. If you already have the 6E, you might consider like maybe getting an additional like single or two base station with Wi-Fi 7. Eero can, like a lot of things, they can mix Wi-Fi 7 and 6, right? So you could like take your existing, you could buy a new Wi-Fi 7 base station, stick it as like the center one in your home, right? The main one. Just tell it in the Eero app, I want to upgrade this. Once you've gotten it, upgrade the main one. It'll walk you through the steps. And then you can also then take that 6E base station, reset it, and then set it up as a new base station somewhere else in your home, right? Because you might need, I don't know, depending on the square footage difference, you might need more base stations to cover your home. But that gets to another interesting point with, particularly I found with Eero, but this is true with a lot of them, especially the mesh networking systems, is that they can kind of, plenty of people will buy an Eero 3-pack or some mesh networking system 3-pack, because they often sell them in 3-packs, when they don't necessarily need 3 access points to cover their home. Like they might not have all that square footage. So you're probably fine even just getting started with your one 6E base station, see how it goes. But over time, even just going to 2, maybe you want 3, it just depends on how big your home is. But there's just another thing to consider too with Eero base stations and just in general is like you can have too many access points, and then your devices just end up hopping between the different access points and not getting optimal performance. So that's something to consider. Now with Unify, they have some more ways you can mess with the settings to handle that kind of thing. So I think, and Unify also gives you like a lot of different tools to figure out, like, is it actually your access points that are too dense or not, depending on your floor plan and all that stuff. So that's a topic for another time. But yeah, so I think with Unify, it's not quite the same thing for that. But yeah, you got the Ratchet King, you got the Nest thermostat. It's a great thermostat. I have no complaints with it. I just don't know if I'd be as a person who like talks about smart home tech online, right? And Apple and stuff. I don't know if I'd recommend someone buy a Nest given the track record Google's had with their smart home tech recently. Now maybe this is just like a migration to Matter thing, right? And Google's kind of prematurely deprecating old thermostats because they really just intend for everything to be on Matter, and then they'll actually keep all their Matter stuff for a long time more. And theoretically, the Matter stuff will be compatible more into the future. If we'll see how that all sorts out with Matter, but if Google might not need to do anything for that thermostat to work with Matter on into the future. So things to consider. Now, one other thing we've talked about with smart home tech, I want to bring up, as long as we're on the topic of Nest and Google. Hold on, need to get a drink of water here. All right, we're back. So the longtime viewers of this live stream in my channel will be aware that I had Nest Protect smoke detectors, which have been officially discontinued by Google. They're not selling them anymore. They're going to end support at a certain time. And so then you might be wondering, well, what do I do for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors? And Kidda has these, they have ones that are smart and work with Amazon's voice assistant and stuff. And I wasn't really too interested in those. But they have these, here, I'm getting the picture pulled up. I just went with something non-smart here, which is just these basic Kidda smoke alarms, and they have a smoke and carbon monoxide version of these as well. There's ones that are hardwired, of course. I have one spot in my home that does a hardwired smoke detector, so you can do that. But they also, for ones that are not hardwired, they have a 10-year battery. So I didn't pull up the right one here, but I'll pull up that. So they're ones that basically, like, you install it and it has a battery inside of it that will last for 10 years. And then you just know to replace it at that point. And so you don't have to worry about AA batteries or anything else, just powering the smoke detector. And if you have Apple HomePods, I think they rolled this out a number of iOS versions ago now, and you can turn this on and off in the HomePod settings, but it will listen for sounds like a smoke alarm. It's a pretty easy sound for a smart speaker to recognize, and then it will send you a critical alert from the home app wherever you are about that smoke alarm going off. So you're still going to be able to know when you're away from home if something goes on with the smoke alarm. It's yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some disadvantages, like with the Nest. They'd have this thing where, like, if one went off, it would then like contact the network of smoke detectors in the home, and the Nest Protects would start making noise and say fire in the whatever room name it was. And so there's some things like that like you don't get with non-smart smoke detectors, but it's just a place in my home where I'm like, I don't need smart tech here. Smoke detector is a solved problem. And it seems like a clever idea where they have these kind of built-in batteries. It's like planned obsolescence where you just, you get the one smoke detector with everything in it, including the battery, and then it just dies after 10 years. So, yeah, that's what I have now. And so far, I mean, I haven't thankfully had any fires or anything to really test them, but would recommend. So something to check out if you're in the market for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And also pay attention to the local recommendations, like in the US, like it's good to put them in like your bedrooms and like the hallways and different things. And like you should, if you have natural gas in your home, you definitely need smoke plus carbon monoxide detectors. And there's some other reasons, like it could be a good question to ask AI or just figure out for your area of the world, what is recommended for fire safety, because it's one of those boring topics, but it's like you really should have up-to-date stuff there. And yeah. The other thing I missed, by the way, about those Nest Protects is they had these really, I mean, it was like that sort of Tony Fadell Apple-esque design that went into Nest. They had these beautiful night lights that had a motion sensor, and it would like light up this like little night light as you walked underneath it. You could turn it on or off depending on, if you wanted it or not in that particular location, but it was like a really just nice, very dim night light as you're walking down the hallway at night. So no longer have those with a non-smart option, but yeah. Oh, I didn't know about Ecobee Premium having a built-in Thread radio. That's cool. The one thing, my one major downside and complaint about the Ecobee side of things is just they have been very slow to support Matter. And I don't think they're really involved very much in the Matter standard. And yeah, I'd love to see them get into Matter more than they are. Like they came out with this new low-end thermostat at CES. Forget what it's called, but like it doesn't support Matter. And of course, Nest and Google's all about Matter, right? They're very heavily involved in Matter. And so then, of course, the latest Nest supports Matter. Now, as I talked about in my review of the latest Nest, it does require the Google Home app to set up. It's not like a purist Matter device where you just scan the code with anything and it works. But a thermostat, it's got to give you custom wiring tutorials and stuff where I can live with that, right? It makes sense. And there are other stuff like that only supports Matter via, you got to still install the manufacturer's app and, use some of their stuff. But yeah, I didn't know Ecobee has a thread radio in it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there are plenty of nightlight solutions. I have a Third Reality one sitting in a box over there that I want to check out. And there are other options too. So you can just turn on the lights with a dimmer. You just turn them on to 5% or something, and that works pretty well too. So we've been going for a while and talking about a lot of cool stuff here. I want to leave you, as I always do in these videos, or no, I shouldn't say always, as I like to do in these live streams. I like to leave you with a particular video from YouTube. Oh, I'm going to YouTube and it's like saying I'm signed out. That's weird. All right, here we go. I want to leave you with a video that I saw earlier today that I think is a really cool look at the new CarPlay. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Yeah. So this is a really great look at the new CarPlay from fellow creator Nikias Molina. And this is just a great summary of like all the new CarPlay features, or pretty much all of them. So here's the link in the chat. Could be a good video to check out after this one. And again, don't install the betas unless you need to right now. The public betas will be coming soon, and that's when you should really do it, unless you're like just playing around for fun. Don't put the developer beta 1 on your main carry phone. It's not a good idea. But with that note, have a good night. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.